Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Mike.
I'm Charlie.
And today we're going to be installing the CoolTech tow harness wiring kit when you flat tow your Jeep Wrangler behind your RV.
And this one has a battery fix wiring harness in it too.
So if you have the problem with the dead battery on your JL, you're going to want to have the battery harness kit as well. That only applies if you have LED taillights. So some of the tools we need, Charlie, do you want to run us through some tools?
Okay, so we have our Torx kit, our wire crimpers, wire cutters, pocket knife, wire strippers, a lighter, torch, wire tester, power tester, zip ties, some tape, and then butt ends.
The first thing I want to say about this CoolTech wiring harness is it seems like it's a lot or it's invasive. Our last vehicle we leased and we still installed this. In fact, on our last 2 Wranglers we leased and we still installed this. It's really only a matter of cutting a handful of wires. Here you're cutting a total of 4 wires. If you have LED lights, you're cutting a total of 6 wires. When you go to remove this, it's a very, very easy fix. We actually technically don't need these today. You don't have to have these fancy tools. You can do it very easily with some of the tools you have in your Jeep. If you are a Jeep owner, I highly suggest getting a quality Torx kit. You're going to need it regardless of what you do, but you can use the Jeep kit that came with your vehicle. If you have a trailer hitch on your vehicle that was installed from the factory, you're going to want a test light. There are ways around it without a test light, but it does make it easier. So as we go through it, we'll explain some of the shortcuts if you don't have these tools, but if you're at all basically into handy or have any of this stuff, this should be all stuff you have around the house. The only thing that you might not have is we call this Tessa tape. It's like a foam tape, cloth tape. This works really well to make it look factory when you're done. We're just those kind of people. We want to look perfect, not necessarily needed, but hop on Amazon, search Tessa tape, and you'll love this stuff for the finished work. So let's get started. We're going to start diving in and we'll show you how to install both the CoolTech harness as well as the battery drain fix. We should say that thanks to CoolTech for sending us this product, but we have previously purchased it and installed in the videos before. So as always, we leave honest reviews. So this is really, really high quality. You should also know that even the Mopar tow harness has the same issue with the battery drain. So really, CoolTech is the only one that has the fix for the battery drain issue. Your only other way around it, and we actually use this regardless, is your towed battery charger. We use the one from RVI. We are going to be installing that today with this install process. We already had it installed in a previous Jeep, so the harness is already kind of made up, but we'll show that process as we go along. All right, so the first area you're going to want to be is on the passenger side. You can remove this Torx bolt here on the seat, but more importantly, we're going to need to get this panel off right here. So if you've ever removed your doors, you're going to start with pulling this panel off, and then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to remove the entire panel. It unsnaps. There is a 10 millimeter right here you're going to want to remove. Tool we didn't talk about in the video, but these work great. And there is a tab here. You're going to want to go ahead and remove this harness from the vehicle. Okay, so that's off. Just for ease of use, I would go ahead and, well, you're going to have to pull this off anyway. You're going to have to remove this door strap. Those floor mats are not installed correctly. That's another video for another day. When you remove this panel, the clips are pushed into the side of the Jeep. So you don't necessarily want to lift up. You want to pull this panel towards the driver's side, especially when you get over towards the seat here where you can't see the side of the seat. Take your time with it. It's all plastic, but it will come out. That's it. You don't have to take that door harness off if you want. Charlie, we just set that aside so you don't scratch it.
Yep.
The main area where we're going to need to be is right here. We'll show that in a second. So the next thing you want to do is you want to take this plastic cover off. There's these black tabs. If you just kind of loosen them a little bit. So you want to remove this panel. I'm not gonna lie, it's a little challenging. You've got some tabs here and here. along the way, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. You kind of want to pry it out with a screwdriver. This will come up this way into the vehicle. You don't have to remove this A-pillar panel to get access to it, but if you want to, it may be easier, but I think for the little bit of challenge, I would leave that. This area in here is what we are after. So we're going to cut this open very, very carefully with our razor blade because there are a lot of very small wires in here and you got to make sure you pick the right ones. So we're going to cut this open and we're going to show you what to do next. So we're going to really, really carefully start a spot here, unless you can find a factory, which maybe I got lucky. And this is where that Tesla tape is going to come in handy, but we're going to see if we can actually unwind the factory. I don't know if we'll get lucky or not. So just carefully open it up. The less you do with the razor blade, the better off you are. You don't want to nick some of these wires. You can see some of these wires are very, very small and engaged. Again, this looks really scary, right? It looks like lots of wires and lots of places to screw up. Don't be overly intimidated. If you follow the directions that CoolTech gives you step by step, you will not have an issue. The other thing is, this is the point where you need to pay attention if you have a factory trailer hitch, because there will be a set of wires, and if you pick the wrong set, it's not the end of the world. What's going to happen is you're going to have to go back and repair the set that you cut wrong. But there's a set that goes back for the trailer hitch, and there's a set that goes back directly for the tail lights. So if you pick the wrong set, you will be turning on and off the lights for your trailer hitch harness and not your tail lights. So keep that in mind. That is where the test light would come in handy, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So the next step is we're gonna find our wires. At this point, sometimes I feel like it is easier to actually install the switch to where its position is going to be, for the sheer fact of then you kind of know exactly where these wires are going to land and where everything's going to be. So we may do that next. I think we're going to actually mount the switch, so then this is all in place and then we can get in here and cut these wires. All right, Charlie, will you grab the Torx and I'll have you pull this seat out, okay? Or pull this bolt out. It's really just the front 2 bolts. You can lean it back or even just this 1 bolt, and we'll talk about that in a second.
Torx, it's a T50, and we're going to be removing this bolt right here. There might be some Loctite at the end of it, so it's going to be a little bit difficult to get it off, but...
Thank you.
We're going to mount our switches. Again, this is for the LED light battery drain, and then the other one is going to be for the actual disconnect when you're going to decide whether you're towing the Jeep or doing it without towing the Jeep. So obviously, this is your bracket. The bracket's going to sit on the ground like this, obviously tow and Jeep. So when it's in tow, you're going to flip it up to tow. When it's driving the Jeep, normally you're going to flip it down to Jeep. That's going to hold true for both switches. But the question is, what way do they go? So obviously you can connect everything, and then once you're done, you can test it and see what way works. Or you can test it in advance, and we'll just do it right starting out. So we've got our meter. We're going to do continuity, so it doesn't matter. Just pick 2 of the same color. So I'm picking 2 gray to gray. So you hold that in there, Charlie. I'll hold that one. So it beeps. Now it doesn't beep. So you want it to be connected, meaning when it beeps, when it's on Jeep. So I happen to be on the right one. So when it goes back to tow, you want it to be disconnected. Now that circuit's disconnected. So easy way of testing it if you've got a meter. If you don't have a meter, obviously you can just connect you can wire it all up, and if it's backwards, just rotate it, and now I'm going to just tighten up the little lock nut. But don't go too far because we're going to do the same with the other switch. So we're going to pick 2 of the same colors. Doesn't matter what 2 you pick. You just want to see if you're losing the circuit. This one, all right, so it's on, oop, I got it in sideways. So hold on, let's see what we got here. This one you probably want to do because once that other switch is in, there's not enough room to rotate it. So oop, it's going to go this way. So this is tow, which means it's connected, so that's wrong. So now it's on Jeep, which means it's connected. Back to tow means it's disconnected. So that's an easy way of testing it before you put this into the bracket. So we've got our switches connected into the bracket. We've got all the wires are just loose. We've got the one bolt that Charlie just disconnected. So I don't know if you can see down here, this all hides in behind the bracket of the seat. You're just gonna slide it in. Look in the hole of the bolt that we just removed. Once that bracket's lined up, you can go ahead and just put your bolt back in. Charlie did a good job because that did have some red Loctite on it. So now come back and look at the view from the side. That's what it should look like. Again, tow Jeep. So when you're driving your Jeep normally, these are going to be down. When you're towing it behind your RV, those are going to be up. Again, this is for the LED lights. If you don't have LED lights, you're not going to have the second switch. And this is going to break the circuit for the other lights. So let's talk about that now. And again, read your owner's manual. This is an important part. All right, so we're going to talk about where to route these wires. This wire ultimately is going to come down the floor over here. I'm just putting it to the side for right now. These bare wires are the ones you're interested in at the moment. You're going to have a split in your carpet here. So you're going to want to route them underneath that carpet. You have a little carpet snap there. I'm just going to pull it out of the way so you're probably not going to be able to see, but when you're doing this, it'll make sense. Come under here. So you want to route it underneath that carpet. There's a T harness here with the factory wiring. It tees under the seat. It goes this way and goes this way. You're going to want to come underneath that T. So I'm going to get that under there right now. It's a little bit tricky if you pull up on that carpet. Depending on how new your Jeep is, that carpet's going to be tighter than others, but you want to get underneath this T. And it's important you route them properly so you're not challenging yourself later to put those trim covers back on. If you don't, you're going to be fighting putting those factory trims back on, I promise. There you go. Try and get any of the twists out. You got a ground wire. Make sure you don't forget about him. Okay, so we're going to get it underneath that T. So that's where you're going to come into this channel, is right at that T. Right? You're going to come under the T, and that's going to be your entrance into that channel. We're going to do the same here with this one. Got everything running forward now towards the front of the Jeep. All right, so I've got the wires routed back underneath the second layer of carpet, coming forward, and then through where this T is. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to actually push this through. If you're a Jeeper, you know about these drain plugs. So you've got two options. You've got one that's under the seat. It's a little bit harder to get to. And then you've got one that's up on the passenger floor mat. Do what you want. I would definitely recommend going out right here under the seat for reasons. If you have, well, for one, your passenger feet are always going to be on it, or if you also have the all-weather mats, you're going to be battling that drain plug. So CoolTech gives you the replacement. So I've pulled the factory one out. It's right here. You're not going to be able to see it on camera. It's one of those, you're going to use your seventh sense of blind fingers to see in there. So when you go ahead and put it on your wire, you're going to want to put it this way. So roll this thing up, however you want to do it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my end of my wire. I'm going to stuff it down this hole. And again, we'll worry about that in a few minutes. And we're going to show you how to route it up towards the front bumper. But you kind of got to get your hand in there. This is probably the one place where if you have power seats, it helps you a little bit, but you're still going to have to get your hand under this rail. If you want to, you could take the seat out. I think that's a little overkill. So with the seat actually pulled all the way forward, you can see the hole from the back seat. So we're going to go ahead and, again, we're almost there. I'm just flooding the wire down there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take this. I still got more wire to get down, but we're going to take this. So that's what it should look like when you're done. You got the wire coming in, the factory plug. I'm going to route it kind of right around this HVAC vent. Heat vent, probably realistically. Okay, and then we're going to clean up these. When you put these wires in, you want to keep them, you'll be able to see it, far enough, you're not going to be able to see it, far enough away from these pegs in the floor. Run your wires around the peg. If it's right up against the peg, you're not going to be able to put your carpeting back down. So when you loop the wire, make sure you get it far enough away from from those pegs. And again, once this seat is back, you're never gonna see that little bit of wire. Got the actual wire harness that's gonna go to the front of the Jeep. We got it through the hole in the bottom like we showed, moving my seat back. And so here's what we have left. This is gonna be grounded. And now these are gonna come in here like so. Keep them out of the way. And now we're gonna show you how to figure out what wires are what. And what you are gonna notice on these, not these ones so much, but these ones, you've got a heavier gauge and a lighter gauge. So these are larger wires and smaller wires. So you're gonna want to pay attention to that here in the next step. Next step is we need to find the 4 wires that we're gonna cut for this. It looks like 8, but we're cutting 4. We're gonna connect one side to the other and one side this way. So these are we'll explain that in a second. Green, yellow, white with an orange stripe, and white with a gray stripe. This is really important. If you have the factory trailer hitch, you need to remove F107 and F109. This green wire here, as well as the yellow wire here, if you have a trailer hitch, there are 2 sets of these, and you can't tell the difference from them, so you need to test to make sure. This vehicle does not have a factory trailer hitch, so we don't have to do that step, but we're gonna show you how you would test for them. All right, so the next step is we need to determine our green, yellow, white with orange stripe, and white with gray stripe. Now here's very important. If you have a factory trailer hitch, you need to remove F109 and F110 or 107, and I'm gonna explain why. I've got pulled apart the wires that I believe are the correct ones. I've got them marked here with the zip tie. When you have a trailer hitch, you're gonna have duplicates of some of these wires, and you're not gonna be able to know what one is the correct one, and you're not gonna be able to test for it because they're both gonna be getting signal when you go to test. So if you don't remove those fuses, you could very easily wire this incorrectly. You have to remove the fuses, and I'm gonna show you how to test for it. So we know that my green is my right turn signal and right stop lamp. So I've got this, it's this height, like this neon green one. I got a tiny little spot there. Try to hit the right signals, and you see my test light. So we know yellow is the left signal. Try to hit left signal, same thing. And now I know these 2 are my parking lights or running lights. So try to turn on the headlights. This should light up. So that's my left, and this one should be the other one. That's my right, or vice versa, depending on what the code says. So I got my 4 wires chosen. I just put zip ties around them so I can show you what ones they are. So now we're going to show you on how to wire these up. It's very important you keep in mind that these are different gauge wires, and it's going to depend on when you cut these wires. If the forward ones go here and the reverse one, the ones going to the back of Jeep go this way. So we're going to talk about that here in 1 second. The one thing you should notice, that green one's kind of the easiest one to find, the green and the yellow. For me, they were anyway. All 4 wires are going to be the same diameter. There are some other wires in there that match the description, but they're a very, very thin diameter. These are like a, I don't know, 20 gauge. There's some heavy gauge ones in here, and there's some twisted ones in here, and there's some really, really thin ones in here. These are kind of the medium of them all, if you will. They're not the dental floss ones, and they're not these heavier ones, and you're not gonna be fooling with any of the twisted ones either. So that should help you with fishing for your wires. The more tape you peel off, the better you can kind of open this up as well. Okay, so we're gonna start with doing these 1 wire at a time. So I'm gonna start with my green one, which is my right turn signal. When you cut these wires, the heavier gauge wire and longer part of the harness, which is these, is gonna always connect with the wire coming from the front of the vehicle. So, but we're gonna do one last test. So Charlie, go ahead and turn the Jeep on, the right signal on. So we've got, if you look at the back garage reflection, we've got the right signal ready. Now to confirm that I've got the right wire, I'm gonna cut this green wire. That right signal should stop. I'm gonna cut it right where I probed it. So right signal stopped. The vehicle is probably gonna minute tell you you got a burnt out signal. So now I've got 2 wires. This is always the scary part, but this really isn't a big deal. So the wire from the front of the Jeep, we know, is going to come to this one here. And just for real quick, before I make this clean and nice, I'm just gonna show you guys how this works. So the green one there, and I've got the other half of my green one right here, ready? So that's the wire I cut. So what we're gonna do, just for
just to show you how this works, is I'm going to connect it to the green. So this is going to go to the back of the vehicle, and this is going to go to the front of the vehicle. Again, I know this is crude. I just want to show you what this system does. And then we're just going to literally repeat this step for the rest of the 4 wires, or 3 wires, I should say. All right, so Charlie, hit the right signal. Okay. All right, so we've got it on tow, so it means it's disconnected. If I put this back to Jeep, I got my signal back. If I flip this switch back to tow, it's going to turn off. So what it's doing is when it's on tow mode, it's getting the signal from the RV. It's going to get the signal from the wire harness that we just stuffed onto the floor that we're going to bring to the front. When you put it on Jeep mode, it connects those wires back as if we never cut them. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to do that for all 4 wires. Now, I personally don't cut any of these wires any shorter. I kind of just, when I'm done, I'm going to like stuff them back in. In the event you wanted to ever remove this, you could actually go ahead and put a butt connector back in like it never happened. And if you cut the wrong wire, that's what you're going to have to do. But not a big deal. So we're going to go ahead and connect these all. We're going to cut the rest of them. We're going to crimp them. If you don't have one of these tools, I would highly recommend getting one. You can crimp these with pliers, but this will do the right crimp. It doesn't have to be Matco. Harbor Freight actually has one of these, even if it's a one-time job. They're fairly inexpensive. The pink one, you're going to want to use the red size on there. And when you crimp it, we'll go ahead and crimp one right now. We'll show you. When you crimp it, you're going to get that wire in there. Make sure all the strands of the copper go inside that center. I'm going to go ahead and actually trim this down a little bit because I've got more than I need. Where's my green one here? So we're going to get that in there. I got very little copper showing. Make sure it's buried all the way down into the bottom of that plug. And you're going to want to, when you crimp it, you want to crimp right between the center and not this outside either. Right there, from the center to towards the edge there, right where that flares out. We're going to go ahead and crimp it. Once and down, that's it. Nice crimp. Now, this, I would say be careful if you're not familiar with these. You could use a heat gun or something else rather than flame. If you are not familiar with these, be careful. A little goes a long way. Move it around. And what you'll do is you will twist the wire. Don't stay in one spot. And right around those edges, you're going to shrink this down. It's going to make for a nice, watertight, permanent connection. The rest of these wires, and I'm going to come back. I'm going to show you how to lay these down here nicely and put this cover back on. It looks scary and messy, but it's really not. It's just once you find those 4 wires and you determine you've got the right ones, you cut them. You can even confirm you've done the right ones. Again, if you've got a trailer hitch, pull those fuses out. So we're gonna do the rest of those 4 wires, and we're gonna come back and show you how to clean it up. But this is, again, it looks scary. I promise you it's not. This is, any do-it-yourselfer can do this very easily. We're at the point where I've got all of the CoolTech harness wired in. I don't want to quite organize everything just yet because I do want to install the battery drain fix for the LED tail light situation. So according to these directions, we do need to remove the rear tail light. Because we're gonna have to check for the proper connection. Unlike this harness, you can test for the proper connection by actually cutting the wire or pinning it out. This one, we're going to have to do a little continuity test. So we'll show you how to do that, and we'll give you some tips on that. So the first step we're going to do is I have pulled the 2 wires, which I believe are them. It's a white with beige stripe and a white with gray stripe. I'm fairly confident these are my 2, but now we need to test to make sure. All right, so the next step in this process is to remove the rear tail lights. So on this side, driver's side, you're going to go ahead and take this panel off. Passenger side, same idea, just a different size panel. You've got a nylon nut in here. You can either use a 10mm ratchet or a Phillips. I would highly recommend the 10mm ratchet just for the sheer fact of the Phillips. I never feel like I get a good bite on the bolt. Once you get it loose enough, you can probably do it by hand. You're going to want to hold on to the taillight on the back so it doesn't actually fall out. Charlie's going to hold it. once you get the bolt out, I should say, that's it. And the taillight will pull out. Pull out that red tab, give the harness a little squeeze. There you go. And then we've got the light out. So now that we've got the taillight removed, we need to confirm the wire back here in pin 8. If you look, it's white with beige. It kind of looks brown to me, but the second pin from the top, white with a brown stripe. So we need to confirm that this is the wire we're going to terminate. So we're going to run a continuity from this up to the door sill to the wire that we're going to connect with. So I'm going to grab my helper Charlie here. I'm going to show you a little trick. If you don't have something like this, these work great. These are just test leads. So these are going to help me to extend my meter. I'm going to have him hold it on here just so I'm not connecting with a bunch of other wires. And then we're gonna do a continuity to the wire in the door sill and make sure that this is the wire that we're in fact grabbing. If you don't have this, you could use some kind of speaker wire or any other kind of wire to run your test. So let's do this. We've got this connected. It goes down to the Milwaukee tester there by Charlie. We've just got an extension lead. Charlie is probing out the
Brown is white with brown stripe.
The white with brown stripe. And if you come back by me, we know the white with brown stripe is the second pin from the bottom on here. So I just did this tool I had just to make it easier to probe it. And as I probe it, make sure I got the right one. I don't know if you can hear it because you don't have the mic on, but I've got continuity. So that tells me that that is the correct wire that we need to be at. So what that one does is that kills the communication between the LED light and the powertrain control, the body control module. So when that wire will be disconnected, the Jeep will not wake up trying to say, hey, you don't have tail lights. Whether you do a CoolTech harness or even a factory Mopar harness, this issue will be present. So I would just go ahead and use the CoolTech harness, but we've confirmed that this is it. We're going to confirm on the other tail light, which is gray with the white with gray stripe. We're going to do the same test on that side. And Charlie's got the white with gray wire there, so we're going to pin them out. Once we know we've got those two wires, we're going to flag them under the in the door sill, and we're going to cut them and show you how to move forward. So we're going to repeat this step on the other side, and then we'll come back inside and show you what the next step is. Okay, so we have determined these are the two wires. They're fairly small in diameter gauge. So the white with brown, and the white with gray. So what we're going to do is, just like the other ones, we are going to cut them. If you want to cut them one at a time, whatever, it's fine. You notice here you've got two lengths. You've got a longer one and a shorter one. The longer one is going to be for the wire that continues to the front of the Jeep, which I just lost down here. Here it is. The longer one is going to go to the wires that continue to the front, and the shorter one is going to be the wire that continues to the back. So what we're going to do is we're going to strip this wire. The longer one we're going to put in here to, obviously I'm going to strip it to the brown there, and then the shorter one is going to go into this one, and then we're going to crimp them and heat shrink. So if you're done here and you're installing just the LED fix, you guys will wrap this up and be done. Otherwise, you can continue watching. We'll show you how to finish up the install of the wire harness all the way up to the front of the vehicle so you can connect for your RV. All right, so we've got everything tied in. Got it all wrapped nice again with the tape. I got to go get some more tape. I ran out of this felt tape. The only thing we have left here is we do have a ground, which we are going to attach right here behind this harness, which is not hard to see, or it is hard to see. You'll see an area where there are other grounds connected. So you're going to go ahead and take your 10mm bolt off, and you're going to attach that. And then our next step is going to show you the wiring under the Jeep and how we bring it forward to the front. All right, so now I'm going to put this on. Again, remember, this goes in like this first and then snaps down and get it under there, and then we're going to put our doors. Oops. Then we're going to put our door sill back on. All right, so we ran the wire all the way up to the front of the vehicle. I'm going to try and show you the best we can. But we ran it in this tube, in the frame rail, all the way up to the front as far as we could. When the wire exits the vehicle out of the floor, just a little bit ahead of it, there's a hole in the top of the frame rail, and we ran it all the way. And we used a tube like this to kind of guide it and feed it through. you might get to a spot where you come in one hole, out another, and then you go another 6 inches, and you just kind of work your way until you get that wire all the way up front. Came through there, up the rail, all the way around, through there. In fact, if you work your way and play your cards right, you can actually go above that tube there, and on the inside, right in this area, is where the wire exits. And then what we're gonna do, ultimately, here's the wire all the way up front. So we're gonna put it right here on the license plate in this air dam right there. All right, guys, so we're back. We last step of the video, we had got the wire all the way to the front. This is for the electrical harness for our lights. Since then, we've installed the Maximus 3 tow loops on both sides. That is how we were gonna drag the Jeep behind our RV. If you're interested in that, there is an updated video about the installation on these new ones. So you can click the link, check out our channel on the video for that. But what we're gonna do now is we've got our lower air dam. This has been cut out for the Maximus 3. Again, you can check that video. If you use this as your center mark, you're gonna see that this is right where I'm gonna mount my 6-pin plug. So I'm gonna straighten it out. I'm gonna drill some holes in there. And then what we're gonna do is we are gonna wire this into this here. And then we're also going to wire in our safety breakaway switch. So we're gonna get this mounted, and then we're gonna show you what wires go where on here and what the next steps are. Remember, we left off, this is the wire that will send power to our onboard charger that we've installed. That will keep the 12-volt battery charged in the event of it going dead. We use the 12-volt battery on board for our battery, or for our braking system. So that's what we're gonna bring this down to the front. So the next step is gonna be to take the grill off. I'm gonna show you that in a second. We're also gonna need to run this into the cab of the vehicle, and this is our breakaway switch. So in the event the Jeep would ever become disconnected from the RV, this is gonna pull out, and this will activate the brake system. So we need to install this, and I'm gonna show you how we do this, because then once I install this, then we're gonna take the grill off and we're gonna run all the wires where they need to be. And then once all the wires run where they need to be, we'll install the wiring down at the bottom for the plug, and then we'll show how everything else goes. So let's show how to install the breakaway switch. This one's, it's just the metal's rusty. Once it's on, you're not gonna see it, but it functions fine. It's been on a few of our JL. RVI does now have a wireless one, but by wireless, the only thing that you don't have to do is you don't have to run this into the inside the Jeep. On the Wrangler, it's pretty easy to run this inside the Jeep, so I don't know if it's a huge selling feature, because you still have to wire up an additional power for this, so I don't know if it's huge time saving. On some vehicles, I could imagine it is time saving to do the wireless one. On this, I'm not so sure. The only thing the wireless does is it saves you from running through the firewall. On the Wranglers, that's super easy. So let's show you where I installed this and how we do it. My ultimate goal is I'm gonna basically put this right here, and it's gonna put that outside just down here underneath my hook. Now, I've had people say, well, it's not straight out, so if it pulls, it's not gonna work. I have tested this countless times on my past 2 JLs. It works great, and I like it because you don't have this big ugly thing out here, you know, that you see all the time. How I do this is, this kind of sounds funny, but I take a Sharpie, and I imagine you could do this with anything else. Something else might make even more sense than this. It's really windy out today, so hopefully this works. But I took a Sharpie and I try and keep it wet. Get some ink on there, and then I push it. So what I want to do is I want to drill a hole just large enough for this reveal to poke out. I think it's on there. We're gonna find out in a second. I have this just tacked up here. If you look, you can, I don't want to touch it, but you can kind of see half of it worked right there. You can see half of my circle. So what I need to do now is I need to drill that out. So I have my step bit, and I'm gonna try and drill that out. Now we're really close. One more. So that's what I'm after. You see, when you're done, we're just going to see that plug. And then what's going to happen is when it's connected, you're just going to have that. This is your ultimate breakaway switch that you're going to pull into you're going to connect to the RV, and it's going to look like that. So you're just going to see that. You can take the ring off of it, and you see next to nothing. So before we get to that, so the next step is to take the grill off. There's a half a dozen of these clips. You pull up the center. If you've done any work on a Jeep, you've probably pulled these off before. This is a 24 Sahara. The beauty with the 24, the new grill, is they've kind of changed this valance at the bottom. So you don't really have to take that off anymore. But the grill itself will come off the same way as they all did previously. And you kind of feel like you're going to break it sometimes, but just give it some finesse in the corners. And then the one thing you have to watch, depending on your trim level, are the connections for the camera as well as the washer fluid. And that is what I'm disconnecting right now. All right, so we got this pushed into the hole we drilled on this lower valance, which is just kind of tacked up for the moment. So what I want to do is I'm going to push a little pressure on there, downward pressure, and then I'm going to put a center punch right in the middle of the hole. So what that is going to do is that is going to hold that into place. And what we're going to do is we're going to route this through the frame. We're going to come up through the grill and back in through the inside. This ultimately needs to make it to the driver's floor area, and we're going to show where we go through that area as well. So when you're not towing, you can leave that in there, nice and clean, and in the event of an emergency, even if I pull straight forward, it comes right out. So that's where I hid my breakaway switch. All right, so we've routed the wire up here right into the frame. I have it come out right behind that body mount. It comes in here, it goes up behind the headlight. You could take the headlight if you want out, if you wanted to, but I don't think it's necessary. I come up right back here, route it up here right along the windshield washer lines, and I've got it tied in right here. And what this is this is the power. I run a 12-volt power into the Jeep, straight from the battery to power the RVI brake system. It's not a requirement, but it gives you nice, clean, uninterrupted power. So where we're headed is right there. There's a black cap with two little, almost like a twists on it. You can remove it right there by twisting it, or if it's easier, you can just push it out from the inside of the Jeep. So we're gonna pop that out and we're gonna drill a hole big enough, or just big enough, for our wires to go through. Now, if you have a manual transmission Jeep, that's where your clutch comes through. So you're gonna have a little bit more of a challenge. If that's the case, I would recommend the wireless breakaway switch. But that's where we're heading, and we'll drill the hole and we'll show you what's next. So we do have our wires. We have our wires going inside that hole there. We drill the hole with our step bit. I will let you in on a little secret. When you put your wires in there, you don't want to tug them straight in. Let a little loop drip down. So if for any reason water would try and follow that wire or wick, you want what's called a drip loop. So let the water drip down the bottom of it before it can follow itself into the cabin. Having said that, I'm going to silicone around it, but it will follow in through that loom if given the opportunity. So same thing over here, guys. We are going to take this wire and we are going to get it down to that. I'm probably going to follow same kind of route behind the headlight, loop through there, make it nice, and then we'll finish up our wiring down in the bumper. I've got everything brought up to the front. I've got my charge wire and everything's all, I put it in this nice loom. Don't forget to come through your hole. Don't forget to add your heat shrink, and don't forget to come through this all before you wire it up. There's some pins here, and when you wire it, make sure you cut the wires short enough so they bury in. You don't want any fringes hanging out. And I'll give you, if you're using the CoolTech, the terminal marked L is yellow, terminal marked T is red. The terminal marked G is going to be your brown. We'll talk about that in a second. And the center terminal is what you're going to use for a charger. So that's auxiliary power. So I have that going directly to my charger. Now my brown I don't have directly going because I ran a separate ground as well. Some battery chargers require a direct ground to the RV. So I'm pulling a second ground out of here that I'm going to ground to the chassis as well. So if you're not looking to do that, you could just put the brown right here. But these two are going to come together, and I'm going to have a separate chassis ground. And when you put it together, you've got a screw hole, which is in like that 1 o'clock position. So it is keyed, but at least so you have an idea. Be careful pulling on it from the back, but it's a little bit of a challenge because you're working with that spring-loaded top. And then this is put your screw back in here. And then again, what I am going to do is I am going to connect these grounds together. So I have an additional chassis ground. I'm going to bring all the sheathing up, and then you're going to put the heat shrink up here, heat it from there down. And once it's all nice, I'm going to put this in here. I'll show you when it's all nice, and we're going to mount it back in the bumper. So we got our heat shrink on here. I just wrapped it with a little extra tape. Everything's all in its loom. I'm going to finish that up. We're going to do our chassis ground up there. If we ever want to add additional style charger that requires both a chassis ground, we'll be prepared for that. Before you get everything wrapped up, I would highly suggest testing it. So here is my cord that would normally go to the RV. I obviously already tested it before I got this far. If you don't have a box like this, so this thing works pretty handy. It's called the Light Ranger, and it'll mimic your tail lights, left turn, brake lights, right turn, electric brakes, which we're not using on this, the 12-volt auxiliary, and even backup lights. So that tool is really handy. If you don't have that, go ahead and plug it into a vehicle or whatever to confirm that everything works. And we did, and it does. And so we are going to mount this in here, and we're going to get it all back tucked up into the Jeep. And then the only thing left we have to do is finish our 12-volt power supply inside the Jeep. So we'll show you that, and we'll wrap up the video here in a minute.